Welcome to your performance review, Michael. My voice sliced through the air of the luxurious conference room. The blood drained from Michael's face as Diana Frost's perfect smile froze in place. I placed a stack of documents on the glass table. The moment Michael saw them, his already pale face turned ashen. Diana straightened her posture, unconsciously clutching her pearl necklace. I smiled slowly, slightly adjusting the sleeve of my cream suit. The Twin Stars logo pin gleamed on my lapel. 3 years ago, you told me we were over. You said I deserve better. I continued calmly. Today is the day we evaluate whether your words were correct. Through the large windows of the conference room, my office building was visible. On the top floor, I knew 65-year-old Margaret Harlow was watching, probably with a smile on her face. 3 years earlier. I hummed softly, as I balanced Emily on my hip, sorting through marketing reports with my free hand. Being back at work just 8 weeks after having twins was brutal, but I was determined to prove I could handle both motherhood and my career. The copy machine hummed in the background as I gathered my papers. As I rounded the corner, I heard Michael's voice, hushed, intimate. I can't keep living like this, Diana. The twins, the mortgage, Lisa's expectations, it's suffocating me. I froze, Emily clutched to my chest. My heart hammered against my ribs. You deserve better, Michael. The smooth voice belonged to Diana Frost, our company's senior VP. Someone who understands your ambitions. Your potential is wasted with those domestic distractions. Lisa's a good person, Michael said, though his defense sounded hollow. And the twins are adorable, I'm sure, Diana purred. But surely you didn't envision changing diapers in a modest suburban house when you graduated from Princeton? Emily gave a soft coo, and I quickly stepped back before they could spot me. My papers scattered across the floor as my trembling hands lost their grip. For the rest of that day, I moved through my tasks like a ghost. I nailed my presentation on autopilot, my voice steady even as my insides felt like shattered glass. By evening, my shock had crystallized into a strange, detached clarity. Our modest 2-story home, the one we'd been so excited to buy, now looked different to me. Had it become Michael's prison? I found him in the nursery, mechanically changing Oliver's diaper. How was your day? He asked without looking up. Illuminating, I replied, setting Emily down in her crib. I learned some interesting things about marketing demographics, and about my husband. Michael's hand stilled. Then he turned to face me. Something in his expression told me he'd been working up to this moment. Lisa, we need to talk. About you and Diana? The words escaped before I could stop them. His eyes widened slightly, not with guilt, but with relief. How long have you known? Since this afternoon, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I never meant for this to happen, Michael said. But Diana understands what I want from life in a way that. He trailed off. In a way that the mother of your children doesn't? I finished, the first crack appearing in my composure. After 8 years of marriage, I've realized I deserve better than growing old with you in this life. The words seemed rehearsed. I looked at the man who'd cried when we found out we were having twins. Now he stood before me, looking at his 8-week-old children as if they were anchors rather than miracles. And what about them? Do they deserve better too? Diana has connections. I'm being considered for regional director. It could mean relocating to New York. And we don't fit into that picture, I said. It wasn't a question. I'll support them financially, of course. I'm not a monster, Lisa. Emily began crying then. I moved to her crib, somehow managing to hold both twins at once, a skill I'd perfected while Michael worked late. When? I asked simply. Tomorrow. I've found an apartment. The twins were both crying now, their faces red with distress. I felt their warmth against me, their absolute dependence, and something fierce surged through my exhaustion. Then you should pack, I said quietly, turning my attention to my children. The next morning, Michael moved out with clinical efficiency. 2 suitcases, his laptop, a box of personal items. He barely looked at the twins. I'll call about arrangements, he said, not meeting my eyes. Goodbye, Michael, I replied, my voice hollow. As his car disappeared, Emily touched my wet cheek with her tiny hand. Oliver nestled closer to my chest. I made them a silent promise. Somehow, we would not just survive this, we would thrive. I had no idea then how that promise would be tested, or that fate had already set in motion events that would eventually bring me back to that conference room, facing the man who abandoned us and the woman who took him away. The first 3 months were a blur of sleepless nights, endless crying, and crushing loneliness. I quickly discovered what financial support meant to Michael, a monthly check that barely covered our mortgage, let alone everything else. His visits were sporadic, awkward interactions where he'd hold the twins stiffly, as if they were fragile artifacts rather than his own flesh and blood. They're getting so big, he'd comment, relief evident in his voice when either would start fussing and he could hand them back to me. By month 4, the visits stopped altogether. Michael accepted a promotion in the New York office. Diana's connections had paid off. I learned about it through a formal email outlining the new arrangement for direct deposits and his mother's occasional visitation rights. I was surviving on caffeine, determination, and whatever freelance marketing work I could squeeze in during the twins' rare synchronized naps. Our savings were evaporating, and the isolation was suffocating. I had been so busy being a wife, mother, and career woman that I'd neglected to nurture deep friendships outside those circles. Now, new mothers avoided me like my situation was contagious, and married couples gradually stopped including the poor single mom in their gatherings. One particularly brutal night, both twins were running fevers. Emily's pitiful cries had finally subsided as she fell into a fitful sleep, but Oliver remained flushed and miserable. I rocked him in the glider, my eyes burning from exhaustion, when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a social media update. Michael and Diana at some gala in Manhattan, champagne flutes in hand, her diamond engagement ring prominently displayed. They looked radiantly happy, as if they'd been waiting their whole lives to find each other. The caption read, "To new beginnings with the woman of my dreams." #finally found my match. I stared at the image until it blurred, my tears falling onto Oliver's warm forehead. He stirred, whimpering softly, bringing me back to our reality, our tiny house that needed repairs I couldn't afford, the mounting medical bills, the growing gap on my resume. "I'm so sorry, sweet boy," I whispered, kissing his forehead. "I'm trying." The thermometer showed 103.2 degrees Fahrenheit, a sharp increase from an hour ago. My stomach clenched with fear. I tried calling our pediatrician's overnight line, but got their voicemail. Without thinking twice, I bundled both twins into their car seats and rushed to the emergency room. The ER was chaotic that night, a multi-car accident had emergency personnel scrambling. I sat in the waiting room. For over an hour, a twin in each arm, both burning with fever now, my own tears mixing with their sweat as I murmured desperate prayers. "First-time mother?" An elderly woman's voice cut through my panic. I looked up to see a distinguished-looking woman with silver hair and kind eyes, sitting primly in a chair across from me. Despite the late hour, she was impeccably dressed in a tailored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. "Is it that obvious?" I tried to laugh, but it came out as a sob. "Their fevers are concerning, but they'll be all right," she said with quiet authority. I raised 4 of my own. "May I help you hold one while you comfort the other?" Under normal circumstances, I would never have handed my child to a stranger. But there was something trustworthy about her steady gaze. I carefully transferred Emily to her experienced arms. "I'm Margaret Harlow," she said, effortlessly soothing Emily with a gentle bouncing motion. "Lisa Caulfield. And these are Emily and Oliver." The triage nurse finally called our name. Margaret handed Emily back and smiled. "Children have a remarkable resilience, Lisa. And I suspect their mother does too." The twins were diagnosed with a severe ear infection. One round of antibiotics, several $100s I didn't have, and 3 hours later, we were heading home. I was so exhausted I almost missed the cream-colored business card tucked into the diaper bag as I unpacked. "Margaret Harlow, Venture Capital and Entrepreneurial Mentorship," it read, with a handwritten note on the back. "Your meeting with me tonight wasn't a coincidence. Call when you're ready for a change." I collapsed into bed, too tired to even contemplate what that might mean. By morning, the cryptic message was forgotten in the rush of caring for recovering twins, checking my dwindling bank account, and fielding a call from Michael's lawyer about reducing child support due to increased living expenses in New York. 2 weeks later, I hit rock bottom. Oliver had fallen while trying to stand, resulting in a split lip and another emergency room visit. My car broke down on the way home. I had exactly $42.17 in my checking account. And I received final notice that our health insurance was being canceled. Michael had removed us from his premium plan, and I couldn't afford the Cobra payments. As Oliver finally drifted to sleep, his bandaged lip quivering even in slumber, I found myself staring at the business card I tucked into my bedside drawer. In the soft lamplight, Margaret's elegant script seemed to shimmer with possibility. "What have I got to lose?" I whispered to the empty room. I called the number at 11:47 p.m., fully expecting to leave a voicemail. Instead, Margaret answered on the second ring, her voice as calm and collected as it had been in the hospital. "I've been waiting for your call, Lisa," she said, as if we were continuing a conversation. "I understand things are difficult right now." "How could you possibly know that?" I asked, momentarily forgetting my desperation in the face of her uncanny awareness. "I make it my business to know about promising individuals who find themselves in unfortunate circumstances," she replied. "Particularly when those circumstances involve Diana Frost." I nearly dropped the phone. "You know Diana? More importantly, I know you, Lisa Caulfield. I've reviewed your marketing campaigns. Your work shows remarkable intuition for what mothers truly need. And now you're a mother yourself, facing the very challenges your target demographic experiences." I sank onto the edge of my bed, my mind racing. "I don't understand. What is it you want from me?" "It's not about what I want from you," Margaret said. "It's about what you want for yourself and those beautiful twins. Tell me, Lisa, if resources weren't an issue, what would you create for mothers like yourself?" The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on survival that dreaming seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford. But suddenly, ideas that had been percolating in the back of my mind while I rocked feverish babies and folded tiny clothes came rushing forward. "Practical children's clothing," I said, the words tumbling out. "Especially for twins. Everything on the market is either ridiculously expensive or falls apart after 2 washes. And twin parents need designs that are easy to get on and off squirming babies, with clear size indicators so you don't mix them up at 3 a.m. during a diaper blowout." I stopped abruptly, embarrassed by my outburst. But Margaret was chuckling. "Precisely what I thought you'd say. I'd like to meet with you properly, Lisa. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office." She rattled off an address in the city's financial district. "I'll arrange childcare for the twins." Quality childcare, she emphasized, as if reading my mind. "But why would you? Let's just say that I have a personal interest in seeing you rebuild. After Diana Frost has passed through your lives. Get some rest, Lisa. Tomorrow marks the beginning of your resurrection." As I hung up, exhaustion gave way to a fragile sense of hope, the first I'd felt since finding Michael and Diana in the copy room. Whatever Margaret had in mind, it had to be better than watching my life continue to disintegrate. I had no idea then that this mysterious woman would become not just my business mentor, but the architect of a revenge so elegant, so perfectly justified, that even Michael and Diana wouldn't see it coming until it was too late. Margaret's office was in a gleaming skyscraper, and the opulence of it made me feel ashamed of my frayed blazer. The vomit stains I tried to hide with my scarf. I dropped the twins at the childcare facility she'd arranged, an exclusive place with a 2-year waiting list. The staff had welcomed us like VIPs. The elevator opened directly into a reception area where Harlow Ventures was displayed in silver lettering. Margaret stood as I entered her corner office, the city skyline stretching behind her. "Lisa, right on time." She gestured to a seating area where tea waited. "How are the twins this morning?" "Better, thank you. But I'm still not clear on why I'm here." She handed me a folder containing printouts of marketing materials I'd created years ago, campaigns aimed at mothers that had outperformed projections. "Your campaigns showed remarkable insight. You understood your audience not just as consumers, but as humans with specific needs." "That was before the twins," I said. "I'm not that person anymore." "No," Margaret agreed, surprising me. "You are better now. Before, I idealized the needs of mothers. Now I actually experience it." She set her cup down decisively. "I'm offering to invest in your vision. Whatever you want to create for mothers like yourself, I'll provide the capital and connections." I nearly laughed. "You want to invest in me?" I'm a single mother with no savings, a gap in my employment, and barely enough energy to shower most days. "I see beyond current circumstances to potential," Margaret replied. "And I have my reasons for wanting to help women in your situation." "What situation would that be? Abandoned? Desperate? Underestimated?" Her eyes held mine. 30 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. My husband left me for his younger colleague. I lost my home, my social standing, nearly my sanity. The revelation stunned me. This poised, powerful woman had once been as devastated as I was. "What happened?" I asked. "I rebuilt. Not just my life, but myself. I discovered that rock bottom is actually quite clarifying. It strips away pretense and forces you to identify what truly matters." Margaret walked to the window. "The woman who took my husband didn't just want him, she wanted to destroy me." Sound familiar? My throat tightened. Diana. Indeed. Diana Frost has made quite a habit of this particular game. You're not her first acquisition. You know her? I've been watching her career. She's talented, ruthless, and believes herself invincible. Margaret's smile was sharp. People like Diana eventually self-destruct, but I see no reason why we can't accelerate the process while building something meaningful for you. Are you talking about revenge? I'm talking about justice. And business. You have insight into a massive market, mothers of multiples. With my backing, you could create something that serves them while securing your future. She returned to her seat. The best revenge isn't destruction, Lisa. It's creation. Building something so successful that those who discarded you must acknowledge their error in judgment. I thought of Michael and Diana, champagne glasses raised in Manhattan. Then of Emily and Oliver, who deserve stability. I wouldn't even know where to begin, I admitted. That's where I come in. Margaret handed me another folder. This is a business plan template. Fill it with your vision. No matter how ambitious it seems, write it down. That night, after putting the twins to bed, I opened my laptop. For hours, I typed furiously, articulating ideas I'd been unconsciously developing while struggling with twin motherhood. Clothing with intuitive fasteners for sleep-deprived parents. Matching outfits that weren't identical, respecting each twin's individuality. I named it Twin Stars, one brand that recognized the unique challenges of raising multiples, while celebrating each child's distinct light. The next 3 months were a blur of activity. Margaret connected me with designers, manufacturers, and marketing specialists. She arranged meetings around the twins' schedule and set up a workspace in my home. The first prototype samples arrived as the twins turned 1. I dressed them in the clothes I'd designed, Emily in a sunrise yellow dress, with clever hidden snaps, Oliver in coordinating blue overalls with the same practical features. "What do you think?" I asked Margaret. She surveyed the twins thoughtfully. "The designs are excellent. But do you know what I find most promising?" "What's that?" "You're smiling. Really smiling. I don't think I've seen that before today." I realized she was right. For the first time since Michael's betrayal, I felt genuine joy, not just determined perseverance. 6 months later, we launched Twin Stars online. Margaret had insisted on a direct-to-consumer model initially. "Build the relationship with your customers first," she advised. "Let them tell others about you." She was right. Within weeks, parenting blogs for multiples were buzzing about our products. Orders began flooding in. My dining room became a fulfillment center, then my garage, until Margaret insisted we lease proper commercial space. On the day we moved into our first real office, Margaret arrived with champagne. "To Twin Stars," she toasted. "And to you, Lisa. You've created something extraordinary." "We've created it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." Margaret shook her head. "I provided resources and opened doors. You walked through them." As we sipped champagne, Margaret's expression turned serious. "There's something I need to tell you, Lisa. Before she set her sights on your husband, Diana worked for me." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "She what?" 15 years ago, she was my protégé. Brilliant, ambitious, and ultimately disloyal. She used information from my company to broker a deal with a competitor, nearly destroyed everything I'd built. I set my glass down. "So your interest in me, it's about getting back at Diana?" "Initially?" "Yes, in part," Margaret admitted. "But that changed the moment I saw your potential. This is no longer about Diana for me. It's about you, and the remarkable future you're creating." "Why tell me this now?" "Because our paths will inevitably cross with Diana and Michael again. When that happens, I want you to be prepared emotionally and strategically." "I'm not sure I'll ever be ready to face them," I confessed. "You will be," Margaret said confidently. "By the time that moment arrives, you'll be standing on a foundation of your own creation, not the ruins of what they destroyed." My phone chimed with a notification, another large order, this one from a boutique in Manhattan's Upper East Side. Diana's neighborhood. "The universe has a sense of humor," I murmured, showing Margaret. She laughed softly. "The universe, or perhaps something more deliberate. Either way, it's just the beginning, Lisa. Your stars are rising, and soon they'll be impossible to ignore, even from the heights where Michael and Diana believe themselves untouchable." I thought of how far we'd come in just over a year. From rock bottom to this moment of genuine possibility. The journey ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time, I believed Margaret was right. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rebuilding, creating, growing stronger. And somewhere in that process, the broken pieces of my heart had begun to mend, forming something different but perhaps more resilient than before. 2 years later, Twin Stars had evolved from my dining room startup to a thriving company with 30 employees and a sleek office in a renovated warehouse. Our products were now carried in boutiques nationwide, with international shipping just launched. Mom, look. Emily darted into my office, her dark curls bouncing. She held up a drawing of a princess wearing Twin Stars' signature emblem. At 4, the twins had become the unofficial mascots of Twin Stars. They spent afternoons in our company daycare, a feature I'd insisted on, and often visited with their artwork. Oliver appeared in the doorway. Margaret's here, he announced with the gravitas of an executive assistant. She says it's important. As if on cue, Margaret appeared behind him, impeccable as always in a charcoal suit. She winked at Oliver. Thank you for the announcement, Mr. Weston. Emily, Oliver, would you mind if I borrowed your mother? Janet has some fabric samples that need expert opinions from our top quality control team. The twins scampered off, delighted with their mission. Margaret closed the door, her expression shifting from warmth to business. The Frost Allen acquisition is moving forward, she said without preamble. Their board meets next week for final approval. I nodded, setting aside my quarterly report. Frost Allen was a mid-sized garment manufacturer that had been struggling since losing several key contracts. And this concerns us how? I asked, though I suspected the answer. She placed a folder on my desk. Because we're the buyers. I stared at her. What? Margaret, we can't possibly afford to acquire Frost Allen. They're 10 times our size. In employee count, yes. In market valuation? Not anymore. She tapped the folder. Their stock has been in free fall. We've been quietly purchasing shares through various holdings. My mind raced. Frost Allen would give us manufacturing capabilities we currently outsourced, plus distribution channels into department stores. Why didn't you discuss this with me earlier? This is massive. Margaret's expression softened. Because Frost Allen is where Michael and Diana currently work. The revelation hit me like a wave of cold water. They work there? Both of them? Diana is their executive VP of strategy. She brought Michael in as marketing director about 14 months ago, after their previous venture failed. I hadn't heard anything about them in nearly 2 years. Michael's contact had dwindled to perfunctory birthday and Christmas gifts, with cards clearly chosen by his assistant. So this acquisition, it's personal? I asked, unsure how to feel. The business case is sound, Margaret replied carefully. Frost Allen owns technologies and supply chains that would take us years to develop. But yes, there's a personal element I won't deny. She sat opposite me. Lisa, you've built something remarkable. Twin Stars is changing how the industry approaches children's clothing. You deserve to be recognized for that, especially by those who underestimated you. And owning their company would accomplish that? Even as I asked, I felt a flicker of validation. They would report to you. Their professional futures would be in your hands. Margaret's gaze was steady. That said, if you're uncomfortable, we'll pursue other strategies. Twin Stars is your company. I opened the folder, scanning the acquisition details. As I flipped through the pages, a document slipped out, a financial report with several sections highlighted. What's this? I asked, noticing irregular patterns in the quarterly reports. Discrepancies I discovered during due diligence, Margaret replied. Someone has been manipulating financial reports to mask losses and inflate projections. The board doesn't know yet. I studied the patterns. These all originate from the strategy department. Diana's department, Margaret confirmed. I suspect she's been covering for failed initiatives. The company's actual situation is far worse than reported. So we'd be buying a company in serious trouble? We'd be buying valuable assets at a steep discount, then restructuring the problematic elements, Margaret corrected. Those responsible for the deception would naturally be first to go. The implications were clear. This acquisition would put me in position to determine Michael and Diana's fate, with legitimate business reasons to dismiss them. I closed the folder, conflicted. I need to think about this. Of course. Take your time. Margaret stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Diana and Michael's marriage is failing. I looked up sharply. How do you know that? Industry gossip. He's been passed over for promotion 3 times at her insistence. She claims he lacks executive presence. They've been seen arguing at company functions. Despite everything, I felt a pang of empathy for Michael. I knew firsthand how Diana could erode someone's confidence. After Margaret left, I sat alone, staring at the folder. The acquisition made strategic sense. But could I separate that from the personal satisfaction of watching Diana and Michael realize who their new boss was? I picked up the framed photo on my desk, the twins on their 4th birthday, laughing in the backyard of our new house. A home purchased with my own success, not the increasingly sporadic child support. What message would I be sending my children if I pursued this as revenge? That business decisions should be driven by personal vendettas? But if I walked away from a sound opportunity purely to avoid my past, what message would that send? That people like Diana never faced consequences? I was still deliberating when my phone chimed with a text from Michael's mother, her monthly check-in about visiting the twins. Would next weekend work? I know it's been a while. Michael sends his love. Love. The word was stuck in my throat. In 4 years, he'd never once asked to spend time with his children himself. I reopened the folder with fresh eyes. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about taking control of my narrative and perhaps helping Michael and Diana face the consequences of their choices. I texted Margaret, schedule a meeting with our legal team tomorrow. I want to review the acquisition terms in detail. Her reply came seconds later, already done. 10 a.m., main conference room. As I left that evening, holding a twin's hand in each of mine, I felt a strange calm. Whatever happened next week would bring a chapter of my life full circle, not with heartbroken desperation, but with clear-eyed confidence. Mom, are we going to Margaret's for dinner on Saturday? Oliver asked as we reached the car. Yes, she's making your favorite lasagna, I replied, helping them buckle in. I'm going to be like Margaret when I grow up, Emily declared. Smart and fancy and helping people. I smiled, thinking of how Margaret had helped me when I needed it most. But I want to be like you too, she added. Making things that people need. Out of the mouths of babes. Perhaps that was the true victory. Not whatever might happen in a boardroom, but the life I'd created despite, or perhaps because of us being broken. The Frost Allen boardroom made my first marketing pitch seem intimate by comparison. Gleaming mahogany stretched the length of the room, surrounded by executives in expensive suits. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the financial district. I sat at one end with Margaret beside me, our legal team flanking us. The acquisition documents lay neatly on the table. All terms are agreeable, the board chairman announced, signing with a flourish. Frost Allen Corporation officially welcomes acquisition by Twin Stars Enterprises. I signed my name, feeling surreal. 3 years ago, I'd been a desperate single mother. Now I was acquiring a company 10 times our original size. After brief handshakes, we were escorted to a smaller conference room to wait. Margaret squeezed my hand briefly. Nervous? She asked. Strangely, no. And it was true. I felt an almost clinical detachment. At precisely 11, we were led to the executive conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see about a dozen people already seated. I spotted Diana immediately, her posture rigid at the head of the table. And there was Michael, looking slightly grayer but still handsome in a conventional way. The room fell silent as we entered. Michael's face was drained of all colors. Diana maintained her composure longer, her only tell a slight tightening of her hands. "Good morning," I began, my voice steady. "For those who don't know me, I'm Lisa Caulfield, CEO of Twin Stars Enterprises. As of 10 minutes ago, Twin Stars has completed its acquisition of Frost Allen Corporation." The room erupted in murmurs. Diana's back straightened further, her expression hardening. Michael seemed frozen. "I understand this comes as a surprise," I continued. "Rest assured, this transition will be handled professionally." I made eye contact with each person, deliberately saving Michael and Diana for last. When our eyes finally met, I smiled politely, as if we were distant acquaintances. "Over the next 2 weeks, we'll be conducting comprehensive departmental reviews. Ms. Harlow will be overseeing this process." Diana finally found her voice. "This is highly irregular. The executive team should have been consulted." "The board felt otherwise," I replied calmly. "Particularly after certain financial discrepancies came to light during due diligence." I slid a folder toward the center of the table. "These reports, originating from the strategy department, contain multiple instances of manipulated data." Diana's perfect composure faltered. "Those reports were compiled by my team, not personally by me." "You'll have that opportunity during your performance review," I interrupted. "Which brings me to my next point. There will be organizational restructuring to eliminate redundancies." Michael looked sick. Diana's cheeks flushed with angry color. "Welcome to your performance review, Michael." The words slipped out before I could stop them. His eyes widened in recognition. 3 years ago, you told me we were over. You said I deserve better." I continued, keeping my voice professional despite the personal words. "Today is the day we evaluate whether your words were correct." The room had gone deathly silent. The executives looked confused by the sudden personal turn. Diana recovered first. "This is clearly a conflict of interest," she snapped. "You've orchestrated this as some sort of vendetta." "On the contrary," Margaret interjected smoothly. "The acquisition was evaluated purely on business merit. The board unanimously approved the terms." She smiled thinly. "Though I must admit, there is a certain poetic justice to the situation." I opened another folder. "Twin Stars has grown 300% year-over-year. Our profit margins are industry-leading. Meanwhile, Frost Allen has been in steady decline, with manipulated reports masking the severity." I looked directly at Diana. "So please tell me, Ms. Frost. Is this personal, or is it just good business?" She had no answer. Through the rest of the meeting, Michael never spoke, never raised his eyes. Diana made several attempts to reassert control, only to be countered with facts and figures. As the meeting concluded, I stood. "Individual review meetings will begin at 1 p.m. The executives filed out. Diana stalked out without another word. Michael lingered, hesitating by the door. "Lisa," he began, his voice barely audible. "Your review is scheduled for 2:30, Mr. Weston," I said, gathering my papers. "We can discuss any concerns at that time." He flinched at my formal tone, then nodded and left. When the room emptied, Margaret looked at me. "That was quite the performance. How do you feel?" "Not what I expected. There's no satisfaction in seeing them squirm. Just confirmation that I made the right choice in building something of my own." Margaret nodded approvingly. "That's growth. Real power isn't about making others feel small, it's about standing tall regardless of who's watching. They look unhappy together, I observed. Relationships built on betrayal rarely thrive, Margaret replied. Diana uses people, then discards them when they no longer serve her purpose. I thought of the twins, now thriving despite their father's absence. Of the company I'd grown, the life I'd reclaimed from the ashes of betrayal. What will you do with them? Margaret asked. What makes the most business sense, I replied. Diana's department is where the financial manipulation originated. She'll have to go. As for Michael. I paused. I need to evaluate his department's performance objectively. And if his work is subpar? Then he'll be treated like any other underperforming executive. But if there's value there, I won't discard it out of spite. Twin Stars deserves better than decisions made from old wounds. Margaret smiled. You've come a long way from that hospital waiting room. As we walked out, I caught my reflection in the glass wall, confident, composed, in command. The frightened, betrayed woman from 3 years ago was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had transformed pain into purpose. In the privacy of our temporary office, I called Twin Stars Daycare. Emily answered, bubbling with excitement about the fort they were building. Mommy has to work late tonight, I told her. But I promise we'll have pancakes for breakfast tomorrow. With chocolate chips? Oliver chimed in from the background. With chocolate chips, I confirmed, smiling. I love you both. I hung up, feeling centered. Whatever happened next with Michael and Diana, this was my true north, the love of my children, and the business I'd built to support them. Everything else was just closing a chapter that had already lost its power over me. Michael's review was scheduled last, a strategic decision. Let him stew, Margaret had suggested with a knowing smile. The day had been exhausting. I'd conducted 7 executive reviews and delivered the news to Diana that her position was being eliminated due to financial discrepancies. Her fury had been glacial. You won't get away with this, she'd said, her voice eerily calm. The board has already seen the evidence, I'd replied, sliding across the termination paperwork. Your severance is generous, considering the circumstances. After a tense silence, she'd signed and left without another word. Now, as afternoon light faded, I waited for Michael. The building had quieted. Margaret had suggested conducting his review alone, some conversations should remain private. When Michael entered, I barely recognized him. The cocky, ambitious man who'd once been my husband looked diminished. His suit hung on his frame as if he'd lost weight. His confident smile was gone. Please, sit, I gestured, keeping my voice neutral. He sat awkwardly. I suppose this is where you fire me. That depends, I replied, opening his file. I've been reviewing your marketing work. It's actually quite good. He looked up, surprised. You've reviewed my work? Of course. This is a business acquisition, not a personal vendetta. Your department has launched 3 successful campaigns in a difficult market. Your team speaks highly of your leadership. Michael stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. You're offering to keep me on? I'm evaluating you based on your professional contributions, not our personal history. I set the file aside. But before I decide, there are things we need to address. How are Emily and Oliver? He asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. In 3 years, he'd rarely asked about them directly. They're thriving, I said, unable to keep the pride from my voice. Emily is creative, stubborn, full of ideas. Oliver is thoughtful, observant. They're in preschool now. They must be so big, he murmured, regret in his tone. I reached for my phone, showing him a recent photo, the twins laughing as they played on their swing set. Michael's breath caught. They look happy. They are happy. We've built a good life. I see that. His eyes suddenly shining with tears. Lisa, what I did to you, to them, was a choice, I finished. A series of choices. The worst choices of my life, he admitted, voice breaking. Diana, it was like being under a spell. She made me believe I needed more, deserved more. And now? I asked, genuinely curious. Now I'm an aging marketing director with no real friends, a failing marriage to a woman who undermines me, and children who don't know me. His honesty was startling. I've achieved everything Diana promised would make me happy, and I've never been more miserable. In that moment, I felt something unexpected, not satisfaction at his misery, but a gentle release. The last threads of anger I'd been carrying seemed to dissolve. Why did you never visit them? I asked the question that had burned within me for years. He looked down, shame evident. At first, it was Diana. Then, as time passed, it was cowardice. How could I show up after abandoning them? What right did I have? They're your children, Michael. You'll always have a right to know them, if you're willing to be the father they deserve. Do you think, would they even want to know me? Therefore, they're curious about everything, including the father they barely remember. I leaned forward. But understand this, if you come back into their lives, it can't be halfway. No disappearing when things get hard. They've thrived without you, they don't need a father who causes more harm than good. I want to try, he said simply. I want to know my children. But I'll respect whatever boundaries you set. The Michael I'd married had never admitted vulnerability, never acknowledged mistakes so plainly. Perhaps his time with Diana had taught him hard lessons. As for your position, I continued, I'm keeping you on with Twin Stars, heading the integrated marketing division. But your position will be based in our main office. Which means relocating back here. That wouldn't be a problem, he said quickly. Diana and I were separating. I'm sorry, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Don't be. Turns out I was just another stepping stone for her. When I stopped being useful, she lost interest pretty quickly. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. As our meeting concluded, Michael stood, hesitating. Lisa, what you've built, it's remarkable. You've achieved more without me than we ever did together. He took a breath. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm proud of you. And deeply sorry. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd once loved, now humbled by his own choices. Not the villain I'd painted him to be, but a flawed human who'd made terrible mistakes. Thank you for saying that, I replied. As for forgiveness, it's a process. But I'm not angry anymore. What happened led me here, and I wouldn't trade where I am now for anything. As he reached the door, I added, we have Sunday dinners at my place every week. 6 o'clock. If you're serious about knowing the twins, you could join us. Hope lit his face. I'd like that very much. After he left, I sat alone, watching city lights emerge against the darkening sky. The woman who had stood crying in a nursery with newborn twins would never have imagined this moment. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret, all done? The twins are asking about pancake toppings. I smiled, typing back, tell them extra chocolate chips. And Michael might join us for Sunday dinner. That okay? Her reply came quickly, your call. Kids deserve to know their father if he's ready to step up. This decision felt entirely my own. Not made from anger or revenge, but from a place of strength, and perhaps a touch of compassion I'd thought I'd lost forever. As I drove home, I felt lighter somehow. The acquisition had never really been about Michael or Diana, it had been about proving to myself that I could rise from the ashes and build something better. Through my front window, I could see the twins in their pajamas, sitting at Margaret's feet as she read them a story. My family. Not what I'd once envisioned, but perhaps better, forged through adversity, bound by something stronger than obligation. As I stepped out of the car, the front door flew open. Emily and Oliver raced down the steps, their voices rising in excitement. Mommy. We made cookies. One is shaped like a star. I knelt to gather them in my arms, feeling their small bodies warm against mine, their hearts beating with innocence and joy. Tell me everything, I said, standing with a twin on each hip. I want to hear all about your day. As we walked into the house, I caught Margaret's eye over their heads. She raised an eyebrow in silent question. How did it go? I smiled, a genuine smile that reached deep inside to places once broken but now healed. Not perfect, not unmarked, but whole again, perhaps even stronger at the mended places. We're good, I mouthed silently. All of us. Surrounded by the family we'd created from the ruins of betrayal, I knew it was true. The future stretched before us, unwritten but full of possibility. Whatever page turned next, we would face it together, stars aligned in our own constellation of love and resilience.